brand new lens for Leica M mount, and I believe this is now the closest focusing Leica M mount lens ever made to date. Today we're looking at the brand new Thypoch Simera 21mm f1.4, and I'm going to do two lenses in one. I'm also going to review the Voigtlander Nocturne 21mm f1.4. We'll see how these two lenses compare, and I'll give you full details. All the info you need to know, plus sample images and sample photos using a range of cameras over the last 3 months. Welcome, Matt here from MrLeica.com. If you're a new viewer, I often review lenses for Leica M mount system, and today we're going to review two fast 21mm lenses for Leica M mount. First, let's look at the Thypoch lens. Announced on the 23rd of June 2025, we have the fifth lens in the Thypoch Simera lineup. This is the 21mm f1.4, following the 28, 35, 50 and 75mm lenses. The lens we're looking at is Leica M mount. I've been using it on Leica M film cameras, Leica M digital cameras and also L mount cameras, the Leica SL series and Lumix cameras. If you've seen Simera lenses before, you've got the same style focusing with the red dots you may have seen before. You have your soft stop at 0.7 meters and close focus now to 0.23 meters, which, as I say, I believe this is now the closest focusing M mount lens ever. Feel free to comment below if you know different. This is like an M mount bayonet fit, as you can see here. The lens has 14 aperture blades and it comes with a rectangular lens hood which screws on. The lens has got a 62mm filter thread. If you're using filters, they will fit under the hood. And as you can see, you're going to get very round bokeh balls because the blades give a really round finish because there's 14 blades. You can click or declip your aperture, the same as on the other Simera lenses, so great for both photos and video. This is a good looking lens. It looks great on Leica M mount cameras especially. Now what about the Voigtlander 21mm Nocturne lens? So thanks to Flaghead Photographic for sending me the Voigtlander lens to test. Here you can see the lens next to the Thypoch. Stay with me and I'll share more side by side of both lenses as we get more into the video. So how good is a 21mm lens for documentary style photography? As I mentioned, I've been using this lens over the last 3 months, and I had it with me when I did the Patreon meetup in Toulouse in France. So this was us geeking out over a pile of cameras. One of the model's dads actually had contacts and lots of cameras, and so he was showing us all of those things. And it was just so good to have a wider lens where I could capture both like the action but also close-ups because it focuses so close. As you can see, these images are raw on the left and just with a preset added on the right. I can put links to my usual presets below. 21mm just feels so much more immersive. Like you can be in a small kitchen like this and you can still see the full kitchen, everybody and kind of the bits around the person as well. So it really shows the person and their environment, and I really like that. I pretty much had this lens glued to the camera for almost everything except the tight portrait shots. Next, what about street and travel photography if you're into street photography? Street photography, obviously with a 21mm lens, you're going to need to get nearer to your subjects because everything looks further away. But because you can get so close, it just makes it feels much more real to shoot street with a wide lens than street with maybe like a 70-200, because you can like almost touch your subjects because you have to be that close to have any impact to your images. Portraits and fashion. As a model photographer, I wanted to try the 21mm also on my model shoots. Here you can see me using it with flash with the Leica M10 on one of the shoots in London. And as you say, you can get really close because you've got such a wide view. That's probably half body from that distance that you can see me working at the moment. And then you can do full body really easily, even in tight spaces. You're also going to get a distortion with a 21mm lens, so that works well for the more fashion style where you get a bit more distortion. Photographers have used that obviously a lot over the years, and yeah, I enjoyed trying 21mm. Again, 21mm, you've got a wider view, so you can even do crazy stuff like people that can do acrobats like that. This is one of the guys on the Toulouse trip. And again, you can get close. I find 21mm really good for male subjects especially, because I find a bit of distortion works well when you get in close for male portraits. Normally I shoot female portraits, as you know, if you see my Instagram and things, so I was trying to do a mix of both male and female subjects, and maybe like a bit of fashion looking ones, just to get a real selection. Okay, details and close-ups. As mentioned, this lens focuses down to 0.23 meters on a Leica M mount camera. And so even though I don't have pets, and I'm not normally like a cat person or a dog person, I found myself photographing these cats. You'll see the cat photos coming up in a second. because here you can see I'm working with the Leica SL. I'm using the Light Lens Lab close focus adapter, so I can actually get to maybe 10 centimeters, maybe even less. Now you can see me back on, this is now on a film camera, Leica M7. So Leica M7, because it's a film camera, 0.7 meters close focus. Remember, although the lens focuses to 0.23 meters, rangefinders only work to 0.7 meters, so you'll need to use an EVF on your Leica M10, Leica M11, etc. to focus below 0.7 meters. If you're using the SL, as I'm using here, especially with the Light Lens Lab close focus adapter, you can get ridiculously close, and then the background just goes into like a creamy blur, and it's very pleasing. I mean, this is like unheard of for a 21mm lens, for normally for the Leica M system, because you just can't get close enough. So well done, Thypoch. Now what about on film? Now, how I say, I mentioned that I was using this lens on my Leica M7. I was shooting it both in London for portraits and also in Toulouse with the models, and also for kind of more of a documentary style. Great lens combo, but you will need to obviously have a viewfinder. Thypoch don't supply the lens with a viewfinder, so you need to get yourself a 21mm viewfinder if, like me, you're going to be shooting film, as you see here. If you plan to get an optical viewfinder, I tend to use the ones from Voigtlander, the Voigtlander bright line viewfinders. You can either get a 21mm only, or you can get a 21mm and 25mm combined finder, which is what I'm using here. I haven't yet developed the film photos, but if you follow me on Instagram and things, I will try and post them when I get a chance. Now, what about using this lens on digital? So on digital, if you're using any mirrorless camera, you don't need any extra viewfinders. If you're using a Leica M digital camera, you'll benefit from using an EVF, the electronic viewfinder, or you could even use the OVF, the optical viewfinder that I was using on the Leica M7, as you can see in the shot in the moment. Let me quickly show you the viewfinder options. So to recap, neither lens is supplied with a viewfinder. So you will need to get a viewfinder if you're using a Leica M camera of any description, unless you want to focus via the screen. This is an optical viewfinder from Voigtlander, and I'm using the 21 and 25 combined finder, because that means I only need to carry one finder if I'm using two lenses and carrying two lenses on the same trip. The way it works is you focus first via your rangefinder, and then you switch your eye to then your viewfinder to compose and shoot. The difference with an EVF, as seen here, is you can focus and compose via your viewfinder. Okay, now let's look at some video options. So first, let's look at some examples using this lens with the Lumix S5 L-mount camera, and then I'm using a K&F Concept variable ND filter to control the light, and then the Light Lens Lab L to M close focus heliquid adapter, so I can get even closer with this lens. Here's some clips shot in MP4, I think 25 frames per second, 4K, no grading, no anything, like as it is straight out of camera, and this is the sort of footage you can expect. So great for walking around shots because you've got that width, and because you've also got the shallow depth of field when focusing close with a 21 1.4 lens, you can really throw out the background, as you can see here, and it's such a nice lens for video, especially because it pretty much does everything, and it gives a more cinematic look because you can get such a shallow depth of field and yet still the width from 21mm. Now what about using the lens on Leica bodies? So I've been using the lens on my Leica SL2 and Leica SL2S when I was playing with the different cameras, and as well as photos with the Leica SL. Same setup, I was using the close focus adapter so I could get closer, ND filters, and then I was shooting it with my models as well as kind of the walk around stuff. This is now shot in RAW, in a movie, 4K 24 frames per second I believe, and I was using it sometimes with the monitor, as you can see here, and that allowed me to focus more easily for maybe moving subjects. You can see I'm using a different lens there, but that was roughly the setup. So here's some raw footage with very basic color grading, so don't judge the lens too much by either the colors or the contrast from the video. I'd use the photos as your way to reference this lens, because I don't really yet know how to color grade footage, so I'm quite new to the video aspect. So yeah, you can get an idea from the width and the depth, but maybe ignore the colors and the contrast, just so you don't feel that this lens is worse than it actually is. If you don't like this particular footage, that's probably more my grading. Okay, so how does the Voigtlander compare to the Thypoch? That is the big question. Both the Voigtlander and the Thypoch lens are supplied with lens hoods, so this is better than the older Voigtlander lenses which didn't have hoods. Size compared to a 21 f4 scope R is about at least twice the size and a lot more in terms of weight. The close focus of the Thypoch is 0.23 versus 0.5, so that's a big advantage with the Thypoch, and it's also a more narrow design, as you can see here. Both lenses have the more rectangular style hoods which kind of screw on. The Thypoch lens is supplied with a rectangular lens cap to match the hood, where the Voigtlander is a round cap which you then have to fit under the hood, which is maybe a bit of a pain, so I prefer the Thypoch design. Now, what about optical performance? Sun stars. So I did 2 tests. First for the Thypoch, you can see you can get sun stars in an open sky environment, but you'll get much better sun stars if you have the sun on the edge of a harder surface. Voigtlander sun stars are better in an open sky, but maybe more of a spray effect when you have them on the edge of a surface. Comparing them side by side, you can see in an open sky the Voigtlander is slightly better. Lens flare. Both lenses are pretty well controlled with flare, but I did get both lenses to flare in this particular situation. And if you can see side by side, both of them have very similar characteristics, where you get a bit of veiling flare, but nothing too bad. Vignetting. The Thypoch has heavy fall off, especially at 1.4. The Voigtlander also a similar pattern. As you stop down, they both improve slightly. There you can see both lenses side by side with the Thypoch on the top. Again, the corner crop top left is showing both lenses side by side. Lens bokeh. So this depends on how close you can get. So the Voigtlander goes to 0.5 meters, and there's the bokeh. The Thypoch at standard 0.7 meters looks like that, but if you compare it to 0.23 meters, that's when the background really goes completely to blur. Colours side by side at first glance they look pretty similar, but then if you shoot on a white background, you'll see the Thypoch is slightly warmer, the Voigtlander slightly cooler. Now, what about distortion? For real world use, I didn't notice any issues with distortion. But if you look in the top corner of an image, top left corner, you do see a bit of distortion. Lens sharpness. If we take a corner crop at infinity, the Voigtlander is very slightly sharper. If we shoot at 0.7 meters, again the Voigtlander is maybe sharper in the center, and especially when you zoom in, you can see the Voigtlander is sharper. Edge crop, again maybe the Voigtlander slightly sharper. Close focus. So here you can see all 3 lenses side by side, and the difference between 0.5 meters and 0.23 meters. It is such a difference. It's a massive benefit of the Thypoch lens over the standard Voigtlander lens. In terms of price, the Voigtlander costs £899, and the Thypoch Simera is expected to come in slightly lower, around $899. I'll put links below. Now, what about an alternative? If you want a cheap alternative, check out the TT Artstand's 21mm f1.5 lens. My friend had this lens, so I managed to do a quick side-by-side clip to show you the difference. This is how the world really looks like. This is me trying to get this clip for you during the trip in France on the last morning before we departed. So the TT Artstand is lighter. It also has a square hood, but I haven't done an optical test comparing that lens to the Voigtlander or the Thypoch. The TT Artstand is the cheapest, around 50% cheaper. So in conclusion, can I recommend the 21mm lenses? Yes, I enjoyed both. I think the Voigtlander is slightly sharper if you don't mind paying a slightly higher price tag, but the main advantage of the Thypoch lens is the fact that it focuses to 0.23 meters. This just transforms the lens and the whole Leica M system into a much more usable setup where you can get that bit closer and use one lens for both wide documentary style or street photography and still photograph your dinner, all with the same lens. So I think for me that is the absolute sweet spot, and if I had to pick one lens, I would go for the Thypoch over the Voigtlander. Thanks to Thypoch and Voigtlander for sending the lenses to test, and put links below to both lenses, and as always, a huge thanks to my amazing patrons.